Good evening, CAYA. Grace and peace be unto you from God our Father and Jesus Christ our Lord. I pray that you're having a blessed day and thankful to God that this day ends with you being in the house of the Lord and an opportunity to worship God in a real and relevant way that we call CAYA, Come As You Are. I want to say a very special welcome to those guests who may be with us for the very first time. By the invitation of friends and family and word of mouth, I want to welcome you personally to this, our worship experience catered for Christian young adults as we seek to overcome some of the stress and the struggles we have in being bona fide, certified disciples of Jesus Christ. Tonight's CAYA, I believe, is going to be one of the most real, one of the most relevant, one of the most powerful ones that you will experience. And I believe that you're here by providential plan and not simply because you didn't have anything else to do. Tonight, as we come into the season of the holidays, which are fast upon us, and realizing how many people struggle with depression and even suicidal thoughts during this season, today we gather together with our mental health care professionals in our Agape ministry for a real and relevant CAYA on mental health and well-being. Let me share with you a little testimony real quick. My father passed away in 2006. The loss of my best friend in life, my mentor, was really one of the most difficult things I've ever had to live through. I found myself in a season of life that was very strange to me. Didn't have any joy, was always cold, loss of appetite, wanted to sleep, didn't want to get up and go to work. I crossed paths with a friend of mine from college who had gone into psychiatry, and he said, "Have you ever sat down to talk with a therapist or a psychiatrist?" And I wanted to laugh it off for a few reasons. Number one, I'm a man. Men don't go sit on therapist's couch. We go out and we drink, we have fun, we ride our motorcycles, we play golf. Man, I'm a man. Men don't need that. Number two, I'm a black man. African Americans, we're survivors. We don't go to therapy. We just live out. We've been oppressed. We've come through storms and struggles, so there's no need to talk to anybody about things like that. And then on top of it, I'm a Christian. Shouldn't I just be able to pray? I mean, if I need to talk to someone, is that a sign of weakness in my faith? A sign that maybe I'm not who I say I am? Well, he convinced me to sit down with a therapist, and I would tell you, it's the best move I've ever made in my life. Went into an intense session of 6 months of counseling to realize that I was clinically depressed. It took a whole lot to get me to accept that, but it's upon that acceptance that I was then able to find the tools I needed to help balance and better myself. I thank God that I wasn't in an extreme case where I needed medication, but that experience taught me the value and the necessity of mental health and well-being as much as physical and as much as spiritual. Hey, the bottom line is all of us get depressed at times. All of us are shaken by the realities of life. All of us have emotional responses and reactions that are challenging to who we believe we are as a strong man, a strong woman, a person of color, or maybe even in our Christian faith. But God has given us professionals and psychiatrists and therapists for a reason, to help us be balanced in our mental life. The Bible teaches us about Elijah. Elijah performs all these miracles, wins this battle on Mount Carmel, and then finds himself underneath a tree asking the Lord to die. Thoughts of suicide, a prophet of God, a strong man of God, but yet depressed and suicidal. Hey y'all, this is real. You may not have ever had thoughts of suicide, but you know what it's like to lack joy. You know what it's like to be sleepless and restless. You know what it's like to have that knot in your stomach. And sometimes what is required is that we utilize the gift God has given us in our mental health care professionals. So tonight I'm proud to present to you our Agape ministry who's going to come forth at this time. So as we engage tonight, I pray that you will take this as a serious opportunity to walk in the plan and the path that God has for us. And that is that we be well mentally, spiritually, and physically. The Bible says that it's God's desire for us to be in good health and to prosper even as our soul prospers. So sit back, take in this information, use it as a way to bless you and to bless others, that we may prosper and be in good health. This is Pastor Wesley. Look forward to us having seasons of mental, physical, and spiritual well-being.
Good evening, CAYA. I'm Andrea Boudreau. I am the co-director of the Agape Ministry here. We'd like to thank all of you for coming. Before I start, I'd like to introduce our ministry so that you can see them. They'll be around the area. When you came in today, ministry, will you stand, please? When you came in today, you were given a card. There's some in the back as well. You were given a card or a sheet of paper when you came in. We have a panel here that I'll introduce in a few seconds that will be able to answer questions. If you have a question or your friend gave you a question before you came that you'd like to ask, please, we'll have people in the sanctuary that can take those cards and they'll pose them to the moderators. We are also tweeting, so those of you who are online, please feel free to tweet any questions that you have. You all can go ahead, thank you so much. Please feel free to tweet any questions that you all have, and the moderators will get those and we'll be able to pose those to the panel as well. I'm going to start by introducing our panel. We have with us Dr. Kevin Williams. He is a child, adolescent, and adult psychiatrist, a personal career coach, business and political consultant, inventor who currently has 7 U.S. patents, entrepreneur, business owner, and youth and adult entrepreneurship educator. He received his undergraduate education from Princeton University, completed medical school at Case Western Reserve, and interned at the Cleveland Clinic Foundation. He completed a psychiatric residency at the Yale Medical School affiliate, Connecticut Valley Psychiatric Hospital. He is a fun-loving father of 2, Samantha and Jacob, a kid at heart, fair but stern, a loving and faithful husband to his wife, Reverend Dr. Judy Fentress Williams, of 22 years. Dr. Williams has appeared on Oprah on October 31st, 2002, The Secret Thoughts of Fathers. His business, the psychiatric practice, the Mind to Body Wellness Institute, is in Chevy Chase, Maryland, and you can find more about Dr. Williams at www.m2bewell.com. Dr. Ara Thomas Brown is the founder and president of Life Journey. She is a licensed professional counselor and licensed marriage and family therapist with over 25 years of clinical practice. Dr. Ara's academic credentials include a Doctor of Education in Community Mental Counseling, Community Mental Health Counseling, and a Master's of Arts, both from George Washington University, and a Bachelor of Music Therapy from Loyola University in New Orleans, a Bachelor of Science degree from Xavier University of New Orleans. Her areas of expertise include relationship issues, work-life balance, stress management, post-traumatic stress, depression, and grief counseling. She served on the faculty of Howard, George Washington, George Mason, Marymount, and Johns Hopkins. Solandra Fleming is a certified Christian life coach, certified from the Christian Coaches Institute. She's receiving her training there in Christian life coaching. Solandra specializes in relationship improvements, emotional intelligence, and leadership development. She also is a senior human resources and organizational development professional currently serving in nonprofit leadership. Her passion for coaching has grown over the years as she witnesses the wonderful work that coaching can yield in a professional and personal setting through the power of Jesus Christ. Yvonne Hawkins is a certified Christian life coach as well. Yvonne is the founder of the Joyful Christian Coach. Her business helps highly motivated Christians to do you, unplugged. Yvonne holds a Master of Divinity from Garrett Evangelical Theological Seminary and professional coaching training from the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching, one of the top coaching training programs in the country. She is an expert in holding a space for Christians so that they can clear their minds, spirits, and emotions in order to understand God's direction for their lives and then become greater, empowered to get there. In particular, Yvonne's gift in helping people connect biblically and spiritual principles to the unique everyday steps of their lives and develop accountable strategies that work best for them. Thank you, Vanya. And last but not least, we have Deirdre McCannon, Dr. Deirdre McCannon, excuse me. Deirdre has a lengthy career as a physician, writer, speaker, and corporate health consultant. After serving as the administrative chief resident at Johns Hopkins Hospital, Dr. McCannon served on the teaching faculties of the University of Michigan and Georgetown University Medical Center, specializing in women's health, preventative medicine, and bariatric medicine. She brings her professional, personal, and spiritual gifts to conferences, seminars, and passionately uses mind, body, and spirit wellness principles to help people overcome barriers to fulfill their godly potential. Dr. McCannon has been an active member of Alfred Street since 2005. She is on our panel today as a survivor, so that you can see how well you can survive after going through a serious depression. So we wanted to have a survivor, a non-clinician here for you to ask questions as well. I want to end by introducing our moderators. Dr. Christy Arnold, come on up. Okay, Dr. Christy Arnold is the Director of Student Services at Year Up, a national capital region. She received her bachelor's from the University of Georgia, master's from Howard University, and a PhD from Virginia Tech. Dr. Arnold can be found shopping around the city. And she shares with her patients regularly that life is about choices. Now, I'm going to warn you, panelists, Christy will keep you on time, so be prepared for that. And finally, last but not least, is Mr. Gilbert Thompson. Gilbert received his undergraduate work in business administration from the University of Pennsylvania. Temple, yes. And his master's is from the University of Pennsylvania. Gilbert works as a policy analyst in Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA. And Gilbert is an avid kickboxer. So, again, panelists. So again, please, if you have any questions, the mics are open, but if you have a question that your friend posed that you don't want to come to the panel or to the microphone, we are taking tweets, and you can also pass the cards. We have people in purple and gold around the sanctuary, so please feel free to reach out to anyone around the sanctuary. You asking questions that I didn't have an answer to. Hold on, let me find. Deanna, where do we tweet tonight for them to be able to get to the panel? At CAYA service. How come? Or you can also email it howcome@kayaservice.com. Thank you so much.
Newtown incident.
And recently, the NFL player Jonathan Martin from the Miami Dolphins, and also Joyce Wright for the Houston Rockets.
Suicide.
Columbine.
The Batman movie shooting.
The Navy Yard.
Virginia Tech massacre.
LAX shooting.
And the recent New Jersey shooting.
So over the past several days, several weeks, several years, there's been a number of situations and incidences that has happened. And given the digital era that we live in with social media, Facebook, the cable news, we become more and more aware of mental and behavioral health challenges and issues within our country.
Thank you. I completely agree, Gil. Because of the issues that have risen in the current public scene, public media, as well as the fact that Pastor Wesley has talked very openly and very publicly about mental health services, and how we as a church family, as well as a community, particularly as a community of people of color, we often don't recognize and acknowledge the mental health challenges that we face and that we deal with on a regular basis. So he came to us and said, we need to address this. We need to take this on. And so we gladly signed up. The Agape Ministry is here, and we will have flyers and brochures upon exiting the sanctuary that will have the Agape phone number as well as the Agape email address for anyone who's interested in seeking mental health services after the panel discussion. So with that, we are going to start. I want to remind everyone again, as Andrea said, you can come to the microphone and ask questions. You certainly can tweet. I believe it's at CAYA Experience, CAYA Service, and you also can fill out your index cards, and members of the Agape Ministry will take those from you. So I will kick off with the first question for our panel. The first question is, how does depression present when it walks in the office? Does it look the same for all ages, both gender, racial, ethnic, cultural background, and is depression automatically, I'm feeling sad? Not all at once.
I'll start. How does it look when it walks in the office? Depends upon the person and how they handle it. There are some people who walk into the office and they're very depressed, and you'd never know it because they manage to cope and disguise it. And so you wouldn't see it in the office. Other times, depression may look sad. It may manifest itself as anger. Depression can be the person who gets confused and forgetful, the person who has a short fuse at work, the person who seems a bit disoriented and a bit just not themselves anymore. I don't know that it's different for race or gender. I think depression is depression.
To add on to that, I think that, and first, I do appreciate you all coming out tonight to listen to us. And I also was very happy to hear that I got an extra level of clapping when you found out who my wife was. So I'll just say to the brothers out there, be strong and do not be afraid to marry up. All right, so I am primarily a child and adolescent psychiatrist. However, that is what psychiatrists do after we finished our adult programming. And so I can just comment a little bit about depression primarily in children, because as adults, Freud kind of described a melancholic depression. So that's the depression that you probably all think about, with someone just very sad, very lethargic, slow motor even, motions, right? So they look slowed, right? This is the person that you're thinking about that's sitting in the basement in the dark, not wanting to engage, right? That's melancholic depression. That doesn't happen as often, right? But that can happen too. For children, they describe anger, and adolescents too, because you can't sit in the basement and just be quiet and refuse to go to work if you're a child. Your parents will grab you by the back of your neck and drag you to the car to take you to school. And so anger is a depressive equivalent for kids and young people who aren't in control of what they do. And absolutely what was said about irritability, about sleeplessness, because absolutely one of the big kind of unsung symptoms for depression is sleeplessness. Not just oversleeping, right, but sleeplessness. So because at the end of the day, when you sit down on your bedside and try to lay down, that's when you kind of rehearse all the things that have happened during your day. And if you're depressed and you're not really formulating your ideas well during the day, you're not moving on your plan during the day, you start feeling anxious about, even the next day, right? Or why didn't I do the things I should have done today? And so anxiety, laying there, flopping around in the middle of the night, that's one that people don't talk about a lot, but that's definitely there. So for depression, it can be sleeplessness and hypersedation, too much sleep, never wanting to leave the bed, right? If they could deliver the newspaper or you got your iPad, you don't want to get out of the bed, right? And also weight loss or weight gain. So 10% of your body weight, if you gain more than that during that time, or if you lose more than 10% too. Some people respond by not eating. They're too depressed to eat. That's not my problem. I go the other way, right? And most African Americans go the other way.
Anyone? Okay.
There was one other part to your question, and that was, is it all right to be sad, I believe? Or is sadness?
Does it always present as, quote, sad?
Okay, all of us are sad at one time or another. And if you aren't sad, given some of the situations, then I would be concerned. And so depression can sometimes present as sadness because the melancholy is just too much to tolerate. But it does not always present as sadness. And often depressed individuals will make every effort to try to mask that sadness.
I can also contribute. My particular variant of depression is seasonal affective disorder. So that's also known as winter depression. And the hallmark for me was extreme fatigue, feeling tired, exhausted all of the time, and then having that hypersleep, that hypersomnolence. After not being able to function as I normally could and needed to in work, with family, etc., I would then feel guilty. So feelings of guilt and worthlessness are also hallmarks of depression.
Gil, I believe.
Seasonal affective disorder is a really going. Most people have sort of heard about it, but they're not really sure what it is. And basically, as we all know now, we just had the clocks get set back last weekend. We are animals that actually have in our brains a circadian rhythm sensitive place, pineal gland and some other areas around it. So we absolutely know when the days are getting shorter and the nights are getting longer, right? And people, I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. I love Cleveland, Ohio. I will summer in Cleveland anytime, any year. Summer in Cleveland. Cleveland, Ohio has the designation of having the most cloudy days of any city in the country, even more than Seattle. 265 mostly cloudy days out of a year. But most of those are not in the summer. Summers are great, right? But in the winter, it's the lake effect with the clouds and the snow, right? You can feel yourself just coming down, right, if you're sensitive to it, right? And so there are a lot of effective treatments for it. You can get those special lumen lights that, replicate some sunlight. I have one on my desk, right? There's a company called Sunbox who just invented a visor that has two little lights pointing into your eyes slightly. So I know that would be hilarious to go to a bar or club with that on.
Not that we're promoting that. Thank you.
Of course, yes, of course.
You.
Just as an experiment.
No.
As an experiment.
All right. And we're going to go to the next question. Gil, I believe we have a tweet.
There are creative ways to tweet.
We do have a tweet. Our first tweet is, how do you approach mental health concerns with someone that thinks they have no challenges but is suffering?
Anyone?
Well, one of the things that we see in ministry a lot are people who wear masks. especially in the Christian world, where people say to themselves, I've got it together, I know Jesus, I'm going to heaven, I have no problems. And so one of the things that I've learned to do, that I tend to do, is really start pulling back the layers of getting at what's happening in people's day-to-day lives. And when you start asking questions about purpose, when you start asking questions about your joy life, when you start asking questions about life satisfaction, you can start to peel back the layers and then begin to get a sense of what's the real deal, what's really going on in people's lives. And that's one of the things that we start. And then after that, you know, you begin to be able to make some decisions. Is this another level where it might be good to get a clinician involved and then refer off to a clinician, or is it a situation where it's really more for spiritual counseling? But it is one of those things that we do run, especially in the Black church, all of the time, because we come from such rich heritage, such rich tradition. It is our tendency to think and behave and act as if we've all got it together, and not know how to say, well, this is where I have a problem. This is where I need some help. So just start being able to pull back those layers, ask deeper questions, more targeted questions beyond how's it going, and then starting to get to what's going on with people's lives.
And in addition to asking questions, a questionnaire that either a life coach or a counselor would introduce, I always introduce the scripture that talks about the spiritual gifts and the parts of the body that it serves, and the fact that those that have been given gifts to counsel or to coach serve as a part of the body that's needed for another part that's not functioning. So if you have two good eyes but no legs, then you've got a different level of function going on, or two good ears and no arms functioning, then you've also got a different level of functionality working, and the same is true for us in our bodies. So I use that to encourage individuals to seek help for gifted life coaches and counselors, particularly in the Christian community, because through the power of God, so much can be done with the joining of the gifts that mental health professionals can provide. So I think that that's helpful to highlight as well.
I think it's also important for you, when you are talking to your friends and family members, if you observe something, to first listen. Just be there for them. Sometimes we see that something is wrong, and then we come up with our advice as to what we think should be done. And people aren't always ready to hear what you think should be done. They need someone to listen. And many of the situations that were mentioned, the Navy Yard shooting, Columbine, most of the situations, there was some message. There were often several messages that people sent out for help, and they weren't really adhered to as closely as they should have been. So I think the first step, if you see someone who needs help, is to let them know that you're there and that you're listening, and then they may be more willing to follow your suggestions.
Okay, I'm actually going to try to go to the next question. I'm realizing that we're getting tons of questions and we have such a limited amount of time, which is like the greatest dilemma to have.
Can I say something real quick on this? Just real quick.
Quickly.
There's not a medicine that I can prescribe you that's going to overtake if you're living your life wrong. What she was talking about, going to a Christian counselor, someone that can help you, right? If you've stolen your best friend's boyfriend, and right, there's not a pill I'm going to give you that's going to give you the forgiveness of that, right?
Before you move to your next question, we've been asked that for the panelists, if you could please speak up for those who are watching online.
Right. Okay. So I think we may have gotten to this question regarding how do we suggest to a friend that they see a professional. If someone, you're noticing that they're having challenges and you want to make a warm, loving suggestion that they should see a professional. I believe, Dr. Thomas Brown, you may have kind of spoken to that already.
Some of the other panelists did also. I often have people, particularly in our Christian family, say, I'm just waiting for God to tell me what to do, and then I'll know. And I keep trying these things because God is going to show me. And often my answer is, maybe you're waiting for your answer rather than God's answer. And if you continue to wait and you continue to hurt, maybe God is saying you should do something else.
Thank you. We can go next question.
So next question we have is here is, could you speak about how to live life successfully and healthy with other mental health issues that do not seem to have that quote-unquote light at the end of the tunnel, like depression? For instance, I was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, and the stigma of crazy has become too much to bear.
Well, I think one of the clinicians, there's a couple of things, because one of the clinicians, I think it would be really good to talk about that. But in terms of, from a biblical point of view, a Christian point of view as well, there's some very, very clear theological principles about how God views us. And being able to have that, of being able to have that image of made in the, of yourself being made in the image of God firmly embedded in your spirit, especially those of us who do live with challenges that may just seem more than what other people deal with. And that in itself is one of the most critical things, even if you don't have a quote-unquote mental health issue. That is one of the most critical things that we see at large, just throughout the body of Christ, is folk not really understanding how wonderfully and beautifully you are made, and understanding that. And when you do have additional challenges, that becomes even more critical, to have that corrective vision of yourself that you can hold on to, that you can use in addition to whatever things that you may need to work through on a clinical level, but that's definitely one of the components.
I would just say we all have defense mechanisms, right? And, you know, like the most base ones are like neglect, right? Just, I'm not even gonna deal with that. That's not happening, I'm just not even gonna think about it. Right? You can use higher end defense mechanisms like humor, right? Like, I'm your friend, and I know you've been waiting for that call from God, but you know, I know it's been a little hard. Maybe you didn't pay your phone bill this month, but he called me to tell you, right? Or your battery might be down, right? And so clearly, as humans, we are social animals, right? We have to have a pack around us. And I would just ask everybody just to make sure that you have at least one or two really good friends or family members that you trust, right? Because the thing about mental illness is that the thing that you're using to assess whether you're okay or not is the thing that's not working well, right? It's your brain, right? And so if you, one of the examples that I give all the time in my practice is, if there were 100 people running across a field and 10 of them stepped into a gopher hole and they broke their ankle, you would not say to those people, oh, you have weak ankles, right? Everybody else is running, you stepped in a hole and you broke your ankle, right? Because we all know there's a tensile strength that our bones have. Once you surpass that, it's gonna fracture, it's gonna break, right? And we wouldn't look down at our leg and say, you know what? I'm gonna pray on this, I'm gonna concentrate, and I'm gonna have that bone straighten right out. It's gonna stop bleeding in the power of Jesus, right? We know we would go to a doctor and he would set it. He would, you know, you're not gonna ask that orthopedic surgeon, am I gonna be in this cast for the rest of my life, right? Does it mean I'm weak, right? But some of us have had gopher holes, right? Like, our parents divorced when we were 5, right? I lost my brother to something, right? I was abused in some way, right? And a lot of them are secret gopher holes, right? That nobody knows but us. And so it does not mean you are necessarily a weak person, right? You stepped in a gopher hole. You had maybe 1, 2, or 3 gopher holes, right? You started to come through it and, you know, you hit another one, right? So you have the choice, right? You can either limp through life, or you can go to the doctor and say, hey, can you straighten me out, right? And I view medication as a cast. I view therapy as an ace bandage, right? And so there are different levels that you need depending on how severely you are injured. And that's mentally, right? And so,
Question is in a place of clarity and insight right now, so now is the time to make sure you have that support system around you, to make sure that you've accessed those clinicians who can help you, make sure you make contact with those Christian counselors who can help you to hold on to those theological principles that are going to help get you through. Now's the time.
and listen to those people that you trust.
Good. Great. I think we have a question from the audience. Sir?
Check. Okay. This is actually a more or less a comment. My name is Lamont Edwards, and I'm a therapist as well. And one of the things that I wanted to really stress and reiterate that my sister in the blue said is that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. And I say that from a standpoint that we take the term crazy, especially within our communities, the African American community or the minority communities, and we depersonify people with that. What you need to focus on is the fact that there is something called an illness, meaning you lack wellness, but you're still a person. So don't allow people to depersonify based on their ignorance who you are. And lastly, I will say that when it comes to crazy, technically speaking, we're all crazy. Truth be told, and I said this before in another CAYA that, you know, when you are seeking help, you need to seek help from people who don't mind getting help. And even as a therapist, I myself see a therapist because we need somebody to talk to as well. So this is something that is very, very, very normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Lamont, and we look forward to you joining the Agape Ministry. We meet the second Saturday of every month at 11 o'clock.
And I look forward to you emailing me as you promised you would.
Ooh! You know what?
Praise the Lord.
Wonderful. The Lord is in this place. The Lord is in this place. All right. All right. So we're going to move on to the next question. Okay. How do you identify depression in preteens and adolescents and ultimately distinguish from the issues that they have, be it a bad attitude or just not wanting to be a part of something? How do you distinguish that this is an actual mental health challenge versus a teenager just being a teenager?
I would say that you do have to be careful because teenagers, being teenagers, sometimes it looks like mental health challenge. Adolescence is a time of immense developmental change, and the child is trying to figure out how to become the adult. And it's that transition of depending upon parents, of wanting to be independent, and also wanting to be an individual and wanting to be accepted, and feeling like they can make their own decisions, but not wanting to get too far from security. So that in and of itself is enough to turn anybody's upside down, turn their heads upside down, trying to figure it out. That is not depression. Depression manifests when the teenager feels like that burden becomes so heavy, or other things in their community, in their family, in their environment impinge on that, and they don't feel as if they have the coping skills. So they will withdraw, they'll go to their rooms, they'll go to the extreme in the things that they do. Suddenly nobody knows any of the right answers. And those are more of the signs of depression.
Just to give a little reverb to what our new Agape member has said, that we are all a little crazy, right? We all have some issues, right? Everybody, we all have some issues. And absolutely from people with schizophrenia to teenagers, right? they are intermittently going to express those issues, right? So even if you have schizophrenia, if it's properly treated, you're not going to be, noticeable even at times, right? If you're on your meds and you're in therapy, no one will even know that you have schizophrenia, right? It's a long-term debilitating illness in your later years. Okay, they will know more often than not, but not in the early years, right? You can have a job, you have relationships, family, right? But teenagers, it's a temporary thing as well, right? So there's a bumper sticker that I saw that says, "Teenagers, move out now while you know everything." Right? And so they are old enough to see that we as adults absolutely have our issues, right? So you have to think about it like, and the example that I use in my practice, just real quick. So if you've read newspapers, I know you guys are not the newspaper generation, but in the old days with the cartoons, where if someone had a thought in a cartoon, there's a little bubble, then a bigger bubble, then a big bubble, and then they'd write their thoughts in there, right? My wife lets me give this example, but when you're a teenager, you have clear thoughts, right? That are adult-like, right? So we as adults look at those thoughts and say, okay, that's an A thought. Now that's a B thought. Oh no, that's a C minus. And heck no, that's a D or a F thought, right? So we take out our imaginary shotguns and just like, right? We blow out the ones that are C, D, and F, right? And we put our own in there, right? But they're adults, so to speak, right? Miniature adults, or they think like they are. And my wife lost her mom, or lost her dad first when she was 12 to a heart attack. Her mom had breast cancer at that time, but didn't want to tell the girls, lost her mom when she was 15, right? And so, but I met her at Princeton, right? So a year behind me. So by the time you are 12, 13, 14, 15, parents that are, on it have put in the ethics, the drive, all the things that your child needs to be successful, you've put it in there. And the joke that I use is, but you're still here. So for your child, they want to try their own, right? They want their ideas in that bubble to continue out, right? But we know better, so we stop some of them, right? And I told that to one child, and she said, yeah, Dr. Williams, it's like my dad, he's got a Uzi, right? He even shoots the little bubbles, right? And so we have to learn to let them go out and do their ideas, right? Say, okay, you know what? I think that's a B minus idea, and you're gonna see that in 2 steps down the line, but go for it, right? We have to have the courage to let them do that so that they can learn on their own. If we just keep writing in for them, they're not gonna get it, and it's only gonna build resentment.
One quick thing that you should guard against when you're working with teenagers is that you shouldn't take them for granted. Sometimes we'll say things like, oh, it can't be that bad. You're only 15 years old, you're only 16, you haven't lived a life yet. Or how could you be tired? Just get up and do things. Teenagers have valid feelings too. And it's important not to just take them for granted. Again, I guess my thought for tonight is really pay attention, listen to the people in your lives.
I believe we have a question at the mic to my left.
Hello, good evening, CAYA. My name is Kelly Scavella, and me and my mom, we often have a discussion. We go back and forth in terms of the subject on beating your child. Does beating your child contribute to developmental issues, emotional problems, and can it eventually lead to depression?
I want a doctor to answer that.
My, oh my. That's a good one. I like the way you stir the pot, Kelly. You stir the pot.
And I think one of the challenges too is that you've got ingrained in, especially again in the Black community, certain long-term traditions and things that we get even from our biblical tradition, and there are some very distinct ways of viewing things that clinicians are going to see differently. And so again, I'm probably going to ask one of those to chime in as well, because if you're talking about will it lead to depression, that it actually is a clinical term. And so that's something that I think in terms of is it going to go to that level, one of the clinicians can speak to better than I can. But in a broad base, the principle behind the gospel of Jesus Christ is love. And then when you break that down to individual types of relationships, the underlining theme is what we do to each other and for each other is designed for our benefit and designed toward growth and designed with the idea of love in mind. And so the Bible is clear about how parents and children, and especially parents, act toward children so that even in whatever disciplinary role that it is the right of parents to do, that the undercurrent to that is love. I think there's another level, though, of specificity to that question about do you do certain things that lead to depression? But I think in the general that some of those things will be taken care of naturally if we're at the place where whatever we're doing to each other or to each other is done with the understanding of this is to get us to growth. This is to get us to love. And love doesn't look like abuse.
It does not. So in the essence of time, I'm going to ask another question, and we're going to try our best to see if maybe 1 to 2 panelists, no more than that, can answer each question. Is that okay? Can we work together with that panelist? Yippee. Okay. Gil, you have one?
Yes.
Okay.
This here question comes in. I know I suffer with major depression, which can be accounted to the loss of a loved one, but I don't have health insurance. How do I seek help without health insurance? And before the panel answers, I wanted to take a quick stab and add my comment, to this. And in full disclosure, I am a federal employee that is under the Health and Human Service branch, and I want to say that I am in no capacity speaking in a federal role of capacity right now. But
that said,
we are all pretty familiar, and we have heard of the Affordable Care Act, the ACA, also known as Obamacare, which makes health insurance available and accessible and affordable for individuals who don't have health insurance. So if you don't have health insurance, you do have options that are out there that you can sign up. And yes, the website is not fully working or functioning right now, but there are other methods or avenues for you to be able to sign up for, health insurance to be able to seek the necessary care, treatment, or services that you do need. Another good thing about the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, is that it requires 10 essential health benefits. And one of those 10 essential health benefits is mental health and substance abuse, which requires your health plan that you do acquire from the health exchange markets to be able to provide and offer mental, behavioral health, and substance abuse services.
awesome. Co-moderator panelist Gil. Wonderful. And of course, you also can come to Agape here at Alfred Street in the meantime of while you're trying to get all of that together.
The short answer is hold out till January.
But still sign up now.
And also, if you work, your employer may offer services that are free to you, EAP, Employee Assistance Program, and some employees will offer 3 sessions and some will offer as many as 12. So check with your human resource department.
Yeah, and check with Agape here, but also I'm pretty sure in this area too, there still are free clinics. And so if you just Google free clinics, right, they have mental health services also available.
I think we have a question at the microphone.
Hi, my name is Ryan Arundel. I went to Northwestern University. I guess it's more of a comment and a request. But so in my 4 years at Northwestern, we had 4 suicides. And that was really shocking because it was something that every year we're sweeping the campus. Like my senior year, a student had gone missing for 6 days, and then they found his body in Lake Michigan, which was just striking in and of itself. But also, one of my girlfriends, she went to Cornell, and in her 4 years there, they had to put up fences because so many students were jumping. And I think part of the reason why suicide and depression is such a silent killer is because we remain silent. And so I guess my prayer request out to everyone here would just be to pray for those college students who are still there, because I think back to your undergrad days, whether it was a professor or a friend, or even being able to pick up the phone and call your parents and have those conversations that really brought you through to graduation day. Those are extremely critical, but for some students, like, that's not the case. And just think about like what all these people do if everyone sitting here sent a prayer up, and what that could do for all the college campuses that you frequented, that you are or were a student of, and across the campus and even across the world. I think that could be really impactful, but just don't forget about those students who are going through it. And for me, it was a blessing because in those 4 years, it was never a student of color, or a black student per se, who had taken their life. But nonetheless, like, it spoke to our resilience as a people. But it could be one of us, it could be your best friend, it could be someone in your sorority, fraternity, or anybody. But just don't forget like where you came from, because undergrad was a part of your life. But then, and what it did to get you where you are today. So keep like lifting up those prayers, and don't forget that it is a silent killer, because we're not talking about it, we're not speaking about it, we're not praying about it. And as much as easy as it is to God, I really need this promotion or what have you, like, it's really important just to lift up prayer on someone else's behalf, and that harness that power of intercession for our brothers and sisters in Christ who we may not know by face or by name, but who nonetheless could use a word of prayer. So
It's also really helpful to encourage your college friends to use the college mental health services. I actually did my internship at Howard University's counseling service, and they had excellent professionals there who were there to help the students deal with many issues that came up.
So we have a ton of questions. I'm going to try to get a theme going and just ask one big question, and then we'll definitely take one from the audience.
Can I
Okay?
just piggyback? Because I was kind of going to say what she was saying about campus services, to piggyback off what the young lady said, but they also help people in the community. So if you have a low income or you can't pay regular prices, you can get a grad student who's trained and monitored by a staff member to give you professional services for a low price.
Can we get out the Agape email as
We
well?
will at the closing. We're definitely going to get all of that out. One of the questions that we did get was related to spirituality and mental health services, and what are our thoughts, or what are the panelists' thoughts about counseling as it relates to your spiritual beliefs, having counselors in the church, as well as, in addition to this, remember, I'm merging questions here. If you have a strong belief in science and things of that nature, and how that may collide with mental health services. So it's kind of twofold, if your spirituality and then your belief in science practices and things of that nature, and then you have this extra branch of mental health.
From my perspective, as a life coach, I specifically sought training in Christian life coaching because I believe in the power of God as the ultimate power for us to move forward and drive change in our lives. So from my perspective, Christianity plays a major role, and that's my belief system, and that's the perspective from which I would engage with the client. Not to say that a non-Christian counselor couldn't be of assistance, but as a person in the body of Christ, I would find it difficult to try to make a major change or transformation without pulling from the power of God and His scriptures. So that's my belief on that.
Got you.
Okay. So I'm going to combine questions here, see a theme here. How do we deal with regular stuff that happens? Stuff like work, school, finance, stress, dealing with relationships, folks who are constantly on edge, multitasking, and can't finish simple tasks. I sometimes feel like I'm going to lose my mind. What do I do? And, besides prayer and exercises, what can be done?
I think one of those, one of the things that we do as Christian life coaches actually is that very scenario is a pretty common one that we face, especially as we engage such a fractured society. And so this sense of being overwhelmed and trying to keep all the balls in the air happens to almost all of us at some point. I think one of the things, and Solange mentioned this too, that is a huge key is to get pretty quickly to the place of what's your purpose? What is God doing in your life right now? And a counselor or a coach can help you get to that level so that you can figure out what are the priorities that are absolutely needs that get me to the place where I'm supposed to be in your life. Because there's going to be a time where there will be too many balls in the air, and we all get there. But understanding, number one, that is common and that's normal, I think is really, really key. But then figuring out, where am I supposed to be? One of the big keys that I use, again, like Solange does, is using your spiritual gifts to help you get to what is your purpose. Why are you here? And that will answer questions, help you say, okay, well, maybe this ball I'm not even supposed to have at all, because this is not helping me get to where I'm supposed to go. That clears it up. At least that's the place to start.
And structure, too. Like, structure your day. So a lot of times, people are coming to me and saying, oh, I think I have ADHD because I've got all these things that are just falling. And I think that you're right. Sometimes you just have too many balls, or you don't have enough structure in your life to keep the balls in the air. So wake up at a time that's good for you. Pray to start your day. Get some exercise in before you actually listen to your voicemails, look at your emails, look at your Twitter or whatever, right? Get that in. Now you're starting the day stronger. And, let me back up. Get some sleep.
Yes.
Right? Because if you are chronically sleep deprived, you will have the symptoms of ADHD, right? You can't concentrate. Your focus is gone, right? And so structure in your life, absolutely.
I think we're going to go to the audience here at the microphone to my right.
Short. Sorry. Earlier in the service, I believe, ma'am in the blue, don't remember your name, but you talked about people who commonly use masks to kind of cover up other issues, and it's often not clear as to what it could possibly be. So my question is, what if you know someone who is actually already in counseling and they are already seeking help for a particular issue, but you start to notice some of their behavior and it might be projecting or kind of giving the idea that there's actually something else going on? How do you encourage them to seek help for that area without being condescending towards the other issue?
One of the biggest things that any of us can do for anybody, and it's been said, is learn how to listen. We have, and it comes from a warm heart, we have the natural tendency to want to give advice off the bat before we even really know what's going on. And if we can learn to develop real solid listening skills, you will be amazed at how well just that helps. Most of us are starving to be heard. Most of us are starving to be heard. And just knowing that somebody cares and is willing to listen without advice can be huge.
The other thing is, if you know that the person is in counseling, allow counseling the time to work. So the person may be working on an issue, and often what happens is you go and you start working on one issue, but many other things come up that need to be addressed. And so counseling is the process, and getting better takes time.
And then let me just say something on that too. Absolutely give it time, but also ask the person, are you talking about this in counseling, right? The things that you see. Because, as counselors, absolutely sometimes people come to our offices and they're only telling us the things they want to tell us, right? But now HIPAA requires us, we can't talk about our clients, but we can get information from anyone. So if you're very close to the person, you can say, okay, you know what? I think I'm just gonna, or you first ask, can I come to one of your sessions with you, right? If you're that close to them and they'll allow you, that's great. But you can write a little note. Say, okay, I know who your therapist is. I'm a good friend of X. I just wanted you to know that this is going on. They won't be able to acknowledge you. They won't even probably return it, but they can accept it and then work with your friend.
Young lady in the middle.
We actually touched on a lot of what I was about to say, but mine is slightly different. I'm in the military. I've been in for 12 years, and my battle buddy just returned back from overseas on medical leave because he was hit by IED, and so now he's blind in one eye, so he's very depressed. And so I've encouraged him to go and speak with a counselor several times, but he's very adamant that I'm his counselor and that he's not going. This is the second time he's come back. The first time he refused, so I kind of know he's not going to do it again. As a friend that's just listening and suggesting continuously that maybe they should go, what else can you do as their friend? And just being there and being supportive, is there anything I should be reading that could assist with helping him help himself get better?
I do quite a bit of work with military couples, and your challenge is a great one. Yes, be a friend, but it's important for your spouse to know that you can't make them better. You can be there to help to a certain extent. Military One Source is the EAP arm of the military, and that allows you to get 12 free individual sessions. Often military personnel don't want to come for counseling because they're concerned that if they're diagnosed with a psychological problem, they may lose their rank. They may even be put out of the military. Military One Source is confidential, and so that could be something. But continue to encourage him to get the help.
Okay. I would just add that it's a common scenario, even with marital counseling. One spouse wants to go and the other doesn't. And so what we would suggest is that the spouse seek help or buddy up with a professional whom you can get advice from, so that when you're encountering situations, you can feed that information back to your spouse. That's very helpful.
And also remember to rely on your supports, because you as the caregiver have to make sure that you take care of yourselves.
And as the caregiver, you can go to the therapist,
yes,
right? And you say to the therapist, look, my spouse or my good friend won't come. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, friend, right?
Friend.
Friend. Father, okay, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry.
She's still available, just guys, if you need. Fellas.
I did that, sorry.
But I do a lot of parental counseling because they can't get their kids to do something and the kid won't come. So I'll talk to the parents and have the parents strengthen up as parents to then have the outcome still be better, right? Or, I'm not sure if you all do this, but also you can say, I'd like you to meet my friend, Miss Brown, at Starbucks or something, right? And just invite one of us over to have a little meal or meet you on a walk or something. And, because if they see that we're like real people, we don't have three heads, and we're not gonna literally put them in a vice to squeeze their brains, to shrink them, then sometimes they'll open up more too.
I think we have a question at the microphone, and then I'll take one of the questions that I have here.
How y'all doing? My name is Jonathan Elias. So I'm Ethiopian, okay, and I've had a lot of family members, friends of the family that have committed suicide, have been depressed, and like going from my little brother who was in the 2nd grade, who my mom found a journal, his journal saying he wanted to commit suicide, to an uncle that had a family, came home from church and killed himself at the, in the garage. Like, it's all out of nowhere. And I've asked my mother, is it a genetic or cultural thing? I don't know if it's the way we were raised and my mom doesn't have a degree in this, but she was like, oh yeah, it's genetic or it's in our culture. But is that true? Like, can it be in like a cultural thing or a genetic thing, depression? And I don't know if that makes sense. I hope it does.
Depression does tend, statistically, if it is in your family, there's a higher probability that you may have clinical depression. And I'm saying clinical depression because there's also situational depression. If you are dealing with grief, if you have lost your job, there are certain things that are going to happen to you. The example that Pastor described was situational depression. It comes on as a result of something that has happened. But if you have ongoing depression that doesn't ever seem to get better, then that is more serious. And there is a tendency that you may see a history of that in families. My suggestion to the young man who came to the microphone is to talk to someone about this, to talk to a professional about it. It's, there's got to be a lot of feeling around the fact that so many people in your family or from your culture have committed suicide. And it's important for you to be clear on what that means to you and how you want to handle that and move forward with your life.
And some of it's nature and some of it's nurture, right? So that basically that means that some is genetic, but also in your family, how do they deal with things that are really traumatic, right? How do they deal with things that are, very sad? How do they deal with surprises that, like someone losing a job, someone cheating on a spouse, right? How do they deal with those things? Because some people use negation, like I said before, immature defense mechanisms. Some people drink alcohol, take drugs. Right? So in your family, how do you deal with negative outcomes, right? And that you can then see, through a therapist, other possible ways to deal, because it doesn't have to be that way.
So unfortunately, of course, this conversation could go on into the wee hours of the night and on and on and on. The Agape Ministry, of course, is extremely proud and extremely happy that you joined us tonight and posed your questions, and we're going to see what we can do about possibly answering these. I don't know if we can partner up with CAYA and put something out on Facebook to answer some of these questions, or we can figure something out. Either way, we do want to thank our wonderful panelists for being here tonight. I hope that we all learned some valuable information about mental health challenges. We do want to remind you that we have our brochures with the Agape email as well as the Agape phone number. Our email is agape@alfredstreet.org. That is the email address. And from there, you will be able to set up an appointment to meet with a member of Agape, and we will go through that process with you. We also wanted to announce that the Health and Wellness Seminar will hold an Affordable Care Act enrollment workshop on Friday, November 22nd here at the church. Of course, you can check your church announcements and bulletin for the specific time and location, but due to that insurance question, we want to make sure that you all get that information. I believe that I'm going to, Minister Dustin.
Thank you. Why don't we all just give one round of applause to all our panelists here tonight.